morning and welcome back to GraceviewKids at Home. Today we talk about God's promises and we talk about a man named Abraham whom God made a really big promise to. But you know, God's promises are not like people's promises. When God makes a promise, first of all, he doesn't even have to say I promise. If he just says it, you know he's going to do it. And second of all, when he makes a promise, he's not ever going to let you down. He will always keep that promise. If he says something, you can guarantee it's going to happen. So when he told Abraham that he was going to make him the father of a great nation, that he would have many descendants, many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, so many that you couldn't even count them. There would be like the stars in the sky. When he made that promise, Abraham knew that he would keep that promise. But do you know how many children Abraham had? He had one son. One son from him and his wife Sarah. And so Abraham only got to see this one son, and he didn't even get to see in his lifetime the great number of descendants that he was going to have. So as we talk about this, we will also talk about time. And that's why I'm standing in front of my clock here. Because as we talk about time today, we're going to talk about how God's time is different from our time. But before we do that, let's go check out the Explore the Bible on location video with Joel.
Well, it's fall time, and what's my favorite thing to do during the fall season? I love to roast marshmallows, I love to build fires, I love to sing campfire songs under the starry sky. And guess what? I've got some Explore the Bible kids, just like you guys, coming to hang out under the starry sky. Why? Well, because today we're talking about Abraham. Turn in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 12 and get ready to discover that God made promises to Abraham and God always keeps his promises. I'm Joel, this is Explore the Bible on location, and I hope that's enough marshmallows because I usually eat somewhere in the 200 range. I should probably count. Is there any better smell in the whole smelliverse than fresh marshmallows ready for roasting? I would say there is not. And let me ask you something. What's the highest number you've ever counted to? 100? 1,000? 1,000,000? 1,000,000,000? 1,000,000,000,000? Did you know if you counted by ones, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it would take you 31,000 years to count to 1 trillion? Here's my mind. It's just been blown. How long do you think it would take to count all the stars in the sky, I wonder? Well, guess what? We are gonna have a star counting contest as soon as all the kids get here. But first, I should probably practice. Okay, 1, 2, oh yeah, 3, 4? No, that's a baby bird. This is Abraham. God made a covenant with Abraham, and God always keeps his covenants. God promised to bless Abraham with lots of descendants and to give his descendants the land of Canaan. God told Abraham to try and count the stars if he could. On a clear night, there are thousands and thousands of stars that can be seen in the sky. Just in our galaxy, there are billions of stars. If Abraham tried to count them all, that would take a long time. We are here with all the awesome Explore the Bible kids. Their moms and dads are right there drinking hot chocolate. They said they didn't want to roast marshmallows. Grown-ups, am I right? Okay. I've got some questions. All right, we are going to roast marshmallows, we are going to count stars, we are going to sing songs, but first we have to answer some questions. Raise your hand if you've ever made a promise to someone. Okay. Raise your hand if someone has ever made a promise to you. All right. Raise your hand if someone has ever broken a promise they made to you. How did that feel? Bad? Sad? Yeah. All right. Next question. You got to raise your hand before you answer, okay? What is a covenant?
A promise.
Promise, okay.
A promise.
You guys are right. A covenant is a promise. So we're talking about Abraham. Do any of you guys remember any of the promises that God made to Abraham?
That he would make him a great nation.
Very good.
God promised Abraham that he would have as many children as the stars he could count.
He would have as many children as the stars that he could count.
That he would keep him safe.
That he would keep him safe. You guys are so smart. Those are amazing answers. Okay, it is now time for the star counting contest. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's see who's gonna win. All right, here we go. Go. One, two, three. Wait. You guys are counting too fast. I can't keep up. Okay, start again. Ready? Go. One, two. Wait! It's too fast! Okay, go. One, two. Wait! Instead of trying to count all the stars in the sky, Abraham chose to trust and believe in God's promise. Abraham believed God would bless him, give him descendants, and give him the land of Canaan. And guess what? God did exactly what he promised to do. Abraham was blessed all the days of his life. God gave him Isaac, and eventually the whole nation of Israel, and the Israelites inherited the promised land of Canaan, just like God said. So we were counting, and then we gave up at around 1,677 stars. I mean, I gave up around 22. But anyway, before we roast marshmallows, we are going to sing a campfire song I wrote called God's Plan for Abraham. And you can feel free to join in on the chorus, okay? It goes a little something like this. God said, count the stars if you're able. Tell me how many you see. All the stars in the sky above is how many of your descendants there will be. Abraham started counting all the stars he could see. He thought about God's promises and he simply chose to believe. Yeah, we're talking about God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. We're talking God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. Come on, sing with me. We're talking God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. We're talking God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. You guys are really good singers, and so are you guys. And now, finally, it's time to roast marshmallows. So what do we discover when we dig into the book of Genesis? That God always keeps his promises. So the next time you see the stars above, you can remember and be encouraged by this amazing truth. I'm Joel. These are my friends. This is Explore the Bible on Location, and we're gonna sing it one more time. We're talking God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. We're talking God's plan for Abraham, and he's got a plan for you and me. Sing it again.
With Abraham, he never got to see God's promise fulfilled. He only got to see the very beginning of that promise with the one son that he had. He didn't get to see his descendants that were so many they couldn't even be counted. And even that one son that he had to wait 25 years before he had that son. He had to wait until he and his wife Sarah were way too old to have children. He was 100 years old before he had the son. But here's the thing, God's timing is different than ours. God sees the whole picture from the beginning to the end. And everything that comes before after that, everything that comes after that, he sees it all. For example, on this clock over here, we can see time and we can see what time it is. But God sees what happens before the time, God sees what happens after the time. No matter what time it is, God sees everything that's going to happen, even 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. God sees it all. So, when God makes us promises, we might have to wait, but we can still believe and still trust that God's going to keep that promise. One of God's big promises that I can think of is when he said that he will come back for us. That one day we will see Jesus coming down from the sky and he will take us up with him to be with him. Now, when Jesus made that promise, that was more than 2,000 years ago, and he still hasn't come back. And sometimes it leaves us wondering, why hasn't he come back yet? But here's the thing, if he had come back 1,000 years ago, where would you be right now? Where would I be? We wouldn't even exist. So aren't you glad that Jesus has waited this long to come back? And here's the thing, while we wait and wait and wait for God's timing, which is going to be different from our timing, we know that we can trust him. And even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, even if we never see it, we know that promise is going to be fulfilled. And we know that we can trust God. So, as we wait for God, let's obey him, let's do the things that he says, and trust him that he has perfect timing and a perfect plan for us. So that's it for this week. Until next week, bye.